بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا سيد الخلق أجمعين. اللهم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم ربنا بارك لنا فيما أعطيتنا وارحمنا واهدنا واهد بنا وزدنا علما واجعلنا من أهل القرآن يا رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا بارك لنا وألف بين قلوبنا ووحد كلمتنا على الحق يا رب العالمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillah, today as per request we want to talk about inshallah the Zabeeha and what is the halal food, what's not halal food, inshallah. So as per request, and it's a kind of controversial, it has a little bit of controversy to it, especially us that we live in a country where the predominant people are not Muslims. We came from countries that predominant people are Muslims, and the issue was much easier in our countries that we have come from. Here is a little bit different because we are the few and the non-Muslims are, the vast majority. So basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the beginning of Islam, from the beginning when Islam was revealed on Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam was asked about, for the Muslims when they were in Mecca, for the first 13 years when they were in Mecca, he was asked, and they asked him, can we eat the meat that the kuffar are slaughtering? Can we eat from that meat? And the message was clear. This meat is haram. It's forbidden. And this was known even before Islam. Even before Islam. And there was a famous character before Islam. His name is Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nayfal. And he was a man who witnessed the days of Rasulullah ﷺ, but he never, before Rasulullah ﷺ had Jibreel come to him. So the first 40 years he met him. He knows Rasulullah ﷺ before the prophecy came to Rasulullah ﷺ, before that. So this man was very unusual. What he did was he disliked, or he knew from his fitrah, from his instinctive feelings, that what the kuffar were doing was wrong. So he took off from Mecca he headed his name is Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nayfal. So he took off from Mecca and he started to search for the deen, the appropriate deen or the right deen. He supposedly, the story about him is that he was over at the north and he went to a Jewish priest or Jewish rabbi. He went to the Jewish rabbi and he told him, he says, I want to be a Jew, like you. And he says, of course, you can join us, you can be like one of us, whatever, and you can become Jewish when you follow the Torah. And he says, that's great. He says, but you got to remember, the rabbi told him, he says, remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cast his anger upon us because we were waiting for the Messiah and the Messiah has not come yet. So this man, Zayd ibn Amr ibn Nayfal, he says, no, I'm changing my deen. And I'm going to follow a deen that there's an anger in it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, no, I don't want that. He said, what else is out there? So the rabbi tells him, he says, you can go check. There is a Christian priest on the other side. So this man packs his stuff. He goes to the Christian priest. He goes to him. He says, I want to tell me about your deen, about Christianity. And the priest tells him, he says, you know what? This is our deen. This is a great thing, whatever. But you got to remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he cast some misguidance upon us about the Christianity. And this, Zayd ibn Amr said, no way, I'm going to change my religion to something with a little bit of misguidance in it. Now subhanAllah, this is mentioned in Fatiha, right? صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين, which is the Christians and the Jews. So he says, what else is out there? So the Christian man says, the priest says, there's nothing out there except we know about the deen of Ibrahim al-Hanif. We don't know what the details of this deen, but that was the original deen, that was the father of the prophets. And he says, well, yeah, great, how can I follow it? He says, that deen is lost. We don't know how Ibrahim alayhi salam used to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't know how. No? So he took off back, he went to Mecca, and he used to stand in the Mecca, he used to stand there, he used to make ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, Ya Allah, I'm worshipping you the way Ibrahim alayhi salam used to worship you, and I don't know how. I don't know how. But one thing he did, and he was so adamant about, he would never eat meat was slaughtered to on the altar, like what the kuffar used to do. And the altar in the Kaaba, there's been said there's 360 altars they used to have on the stones. They used to bring their, Zabeeha, they used to slaughter in the Kaaba under the pretenses, under the name of this god or this deity or that deity or whatever. He used to see that, and instinctively he used to say, I will never eat from this meat because that's been slaughtered to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this man was a kafir. He, with his own instinct, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him some guidance, and he realized that eating a meat was slaughtered to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it cannot be right. It cannot be good. And he stayed away from it. In our deen, and by the way, from early on, if you notice, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala test Adam and his wife in the Jannah? What was the test? The test was with food. Food, right? What did he say? He says, فَقُلْنَا اسْكُنْ أَنْتَ وَزَوْجُكَ الْجَنَّةِ وَلَا تَقْرَبَا هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ. Dwell in the Jannah and do not approach that tree. Do not come near the tree. The test was food. And what happened? فَأَزَلَّهُمَ الشَّيْطَانُ عَنْهَا. The shaitan, he made them slip into making the mistake, and they ate from the tree. Eating is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the very beginning, He made halal and He made haram. He says this is good to eat, this is halal to eat, and this is haram, this is forbidden not to eat, and you should not touch it, you should not even come near it from that point out, from very early on. And the different religions that came in, from the Abrahamic religions, whatever, it changes a little bit from one side to the other side, until Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam was sent with a final message. Now, what happened is that we have two mixed messages in, I don't want to say mixed messages. I will have two different ayat that we need to contemplate on the Zabeeha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the original thing is that everything is halal, except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it prohibited, correct? Everything is halal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Qur'an, He says that the blood, the dead, the maita, the dam, lahmul khanzir, the pig and the pork of its entirety is forbidden. وَمَا أُهِلَّ بِهِ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ. And what has been, uhil is somebody say Allahu Akbar. This is tahleel, right? For what has been slaughtered for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is actually mentioned specifically in the Quran twice in Surah Al-Ma'idah. One of them, وَمَا أُهِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ. The other one is مَا أُهِلَّ بِهِ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ. Twice in Surah Al-Ma'idah. So, this is a given that any meat been slaughtered for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is forbidden completely. Doesn't matter what the situation is, we cannot eat it no matter what it is. That was the earlier message, that was the earlier ayah in Mecca. When Rasulullah and the Sahaba migrated from Mecca to Medina, there's a new environment, something else has happened. They started to negotiate, they started to talk to, they started to associate with the Jews and the Christians in Medina. They did not know Jews and Christians in Mecca. Mecca was primarily kuffar, and all the Jews and the Christians in Mecca, they were mainly visitors. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the next ayah, and they asked them, they said, Ya Rasulullah, can we eat from the meat that the Christians and the Jews, slaughter? And this is the ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. He says, الآن أحل لكم الطيبات وطعام الذين أوتوا الكتاب حل لكم وطعامهم حل لكم وطعامكم حل لهم. This is also revealed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Qur'an, told us that الآن أحل لكم الطيبات. The طيبات, the good food is halal for you, and the food for the Christians and the Jews is halal for you, and your food is halal for them. You can eat from your food, and you can eat their food, and they can eat our food. This is the message. That people would think about it differently. Now, we know in Islam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the Jews and the Christians as they are acting with as some form of shirk or some form of kufr, and this, we know that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specified it in the Qur'an. He says, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ مَنْ قَالَ أَنَّ عِيسَى بْنُ مَرْيَمَ إِبْنُ اللَّهِ. He's the one who said that Isa ibn Maryam is the son of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Astaghfirullah, he's kafir. And the other one says, قَدْ كَفَرَ مَنْ, he's kafir, the one who did what? The one who says Isa ibn Maryam, Allah, wahid, 1 out of 3 or 3 out of 1, also the same message. So people here, the scholars took it in different ways, they understood it in different ways as to what is the halal and what is the haram and what is the food and what's the food. What we say is that the concept is very simple. Although that we say the Jews and the Christians, they're acting with form of kufr and form of shirk. However, they are exceptional from the regular kafir, from the regular mushrik. Why? Because they're still from the people of the book. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exempted them or two things which we treat them differently than the regular kafir. What do? We can eat their food, they can eat our food, and our men can marry their women, and that is halal. And it's muhsanat min ahli kitab. Muhsanati min ahli kitab, that is allowed as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made an exception. Although that He described them as to be acting in kufr, but He made an exception. He says you can eat from their food. You can eat your food and you can marry their women. But a regular kafir who is not the people of the book, let's say Hindu, Buddhist, or any other religion, a Muslim man forbidden strictly from marrying from them, unless she becomes Muslim. And we are strictly forbidden from eating their food, because they slaughter for the sake of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And honestly, I don't know the details, but I can tell you right now, anybody, and this is clear to us, if somebody walks up and says, in the name of Buddha, and he slaughters a meat, it doesn't matter, it could be the most expensive cow ever in the history of mankind. It is for us, it's forbidden. We cannot even touch it at any price. This is forbidden, haram, qat'an, and not two Muslims has ever disputed this fact or disputed this rule in Islam. The dispute was about what? About the food of the Christians and the Jews. Is it halal or is not halal? Now, let's talk about the concept, what is halal, what is haram. Generally, we could say that all the vegetables and the wheat and the fish in general, we could say that is halal. There's no dispute about that. There's no, kosher, not kosher like the Jews do. For us, is that anything that's vegetable is halal, alhamdulillah. Anything that is wheat, corn, lentil, it's halal, alhamdulillah. The only thing we get dispute about is something called Zabeeha. Is that what we slaughter? What we kill, and especially when an'am. An'am is 4 different kinds, which is we give Zabeeha for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is camels, cows, lamb, and sheep. Now, these 4 different, this is what the dispute is about mainly, and not about the rest of them. Of course, you can eat deer, we can eat, horse meat, we can eat a lot of different, but we don't make Zabeeha out of those for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We eat it to eat. We slaughter it to eat from it. In order for the Zabeeha to become halal, it has to comply with 2 conditions. Condition number 1 is that you have to utter and say the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, when you make the Zabeeha. That's number 1. Number 2 is it has to be slaughtered the Islamic way. The Islamic way is very simple. Is that what there's the rule is that you slaughter, you cut the 2 arteries, two sides, including the meri, including the windpipe, and you don't sever it completely. You cut 2/3 of it. You leave it attached, but you cut 2/3 of it, and you allow the blood to pour out completely from there. This is the 2 conditions. Now, the question here is that if we look at the people of the book, when they slaughter the meat, who did they slaughter it for? Did they slaughter it for a statue, for a sun, for this, for that? They slaughter it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And that's number 1. Number 2 is that the other dispute that we have a problem with is the way that we slaughter the meat, the way we cut it. Generally, we have the 2 opinions of the people that they have said that any meat that is slaughtered by a Christian or a Jew, it is halal as long as it is slaughtered the Islamic way, which is they allow the blood to pour out. That's fine. Some scholars said no, even if they don't slaughter it the Islamic way, as long as this Zabeeha is not dead. It's not dead. If it's not being killed and dead by being shot, by hitting it with an object, by killing it, and then you take the corpse, basically. It's not a corpse, it's a carcass actually. You take the carcass and you take the meat out of it. That is forbidden there as well. So that is the dispute that we get to talk about. Some people said that the Christians and the Jews are in the state of kufr and shirk. So the rule applies on them is that we don't touch their meat, period. And that's not the ayah. The ayah is clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, اليوم أحل لكم الطيبات وطعام أهل الكتاب حل لكم وطعامكم حل لهم. It's clear. So why are we saying that their food is prohibited for us? They said something else. They said, back in the days of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, they were not as much of in kufr and shirk as they are today. That's not true. That's completely not true. And that's been disputed by so many scholars. Imam ibn Arabi, so many different scholars, Imam Shawkani, they said the same thing. It's mentioned in the Qur'an. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described them to be in the state of kufr. So, the two opinions, some people say, we cannot eat anything except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what we mentioned, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot eat it, we cannot touch it. وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا مَا لَمْ يُذْكَرْ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ. Do not eat what has not been mentioned, the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, we have an exception. The other guys, the other group, they say we have an exception. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that the Jews and the Christians, their food we can eat. There's, no questions. It doesn't matter what it is. And there's a support to this theory, to this opinion, in the Sunnah. عن عائشة, this is Sahih Bukhari, عن حضرة عائشة رضي الله عنها, المؤمنين. She did ask Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam when they migrated to Medina. She said, Ya Rasulullah, there is a people from the Ahl Kitab, they slaughter meat outside of the Medina, and we take meat from them. And we don't know if they say the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on it or not. Is it halal for us to eat? He says, when you take it, you mention the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on it before you eat it. And this is the Sahih Bukhari. So, is it halal for us to eat the food from the Christians and the Jews, or not halal? Or let's make it more specific. Is it halal for us to eat something from In-N-Out, from McDonald's, or it's not halal for us to eat? Generally, most scholars have said that most of the scholars, and by the way, this is kind of different, like, per region. The Middle Eastern ones who have association with Christians and the Jews, they said specifically that it is halal as long as we know this meat did not come from a dead carcass. If we know that. The people who come in from the subcontinent and that side, because they associate more with kuffar, the Hindus and different, whatever, they're more strict. They said, no, we don't touch it, we don't come near it. It has to be completely halal, and we have to say the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on it. And I'm not going to touch food coming from a Jew or a Christian. I would only eat the food from a Muslim, from somebody who's Muslim. Not only somebody Muslim, it has to be a strict Muslim. A strict Muslim. That he cares about this. Like, if somebody who's like, buys the meat here or there, I'm not sure where he buys the meat from, I'm not going to even go to his house. I think that's an extreme, Allahu A'lam. And I'm here today not to give you an opinion. I'm not giving you a fatwa, I'm not in this position, but here to explain the both sides of the argument. Ibn Uthaymeen, which is the Mufti in Saudi Arabia today, and back in the days, many of the other muftis, they made fatwa for especially the people who come to the West. They told them, fine, you can eat the meat there, but you have to make sure it did not come from a dead carcass. Now, how do we slaughter the meat here in the United States? When you buy the meat, it's called USDA and USDA Prime, and you buy the meat, it has a label on it. How do they slaughter it? Do any of you seen it?
It's done it, yeah.
That's not true. That's not true. Okay. Here, all the slaughtering happens by federal law. It's not a state law. So the FDA is actually, the Food and Drug Administration is the one who controls the slaughtering of all the beef, the cattle, and the cows, and all that. And all the, what they call them, they call the slaughterhouses. If it's smaller places, they call them kill floors. Kill floor is just a smaller scale. So when you build a kill floor or a slaughterhouse, it has to have specific rules that passes by the federal government. And subhanAllah, I was put in a position where I had to study it because some of the brothers are going to have an investment. They're going to buy a kill floor up in Palmdale. And I went through the whole 9 yards of finding out what they do and what does it take to pass inspection and everything else. One of the most important sources of revenue for kill floors and slaughterhouses is blood. So what they do is that they build a tank underneath the kill floor and they put a drain in it, and it has a separate, like a pipe on the side, where they put the trucks come in and they buy this blood with a lot of money. They manufacture a lot of different things from it. Our brother here, mashallah, is a scientist. He could tell us they make soap out of it, they make different things from the blood that they get it. It has great commercial value. A truckload at the time at my time, it was like about 6-7 years ago, was worth about $300-400. Today it's probably double or 3 times, like $1,000 worth a truckload of blood. So what they do is they take the cow or they take the lamb or whatever, and they want to get rid of the blood quickly, and subhanAllah, they do it the Islamic way. What they do is they slaughter it, they cut the throat, and immediately they tie him with his feet and they lift him up. They have a crane. It has to be a crane, up on top. They lift him from his feet and they allow the blood to come down. And every drop of blood has to be collected, goes in that drain, and it's actually, it's tilting in that direction. You go on those, you see what the way they do it. They don't do it because it's halal or haram. They do it because they want to sell the blood. The blood is very valuable to them, They want to sell it. The skin, unfortunately, back in the days was important. Today is not important anymore because the skin, it takes like a lot of bad chemicals to the environment to get it processed. So the skin is not that important to them. What they do is they're more interested in the fat and more interested in the blood. This is what they want to use the most. This is the proper way to kill and to slaughter, or tikka, I want to use the word kill, to slaughter an animal here in the United States. This is the way to be killed. Sometimes what they do is that they shock them, and sometimes they shoot them. Yes, to control them, in order for them to be controlled. And I've seen, actually, as a matter of fact, I've seen in the Islamic countries, they do the same thing. When you have a bull or a steer that's 3,000 pounds, how can you control this guy? So what they do is they shoot him in the back of the neck to subdue him. But then he's still alive, he's not dead. And that is halal in our deen. You could do that. You could subdue him somehow, but do not kill him. And then for you to be able to slaughter him, control him without hurting the people who's the ones who are, trying to slaughter him. Because they're very, very strong animals. They do a lot of damage. The other way is that when we used to hear about this, they shock them and this and that, whatever. They shot them, but they're not dead. They're not supposed to be dead. If they die, it's by mistake. That's not the way they want to do it. The way they want to do it is they want to shock them, they want to subdue them, and then when they're a little bit, they're not completely under their control, and then they slaughter them because they want that blood in there. And subhanAllah, the Sharia way is the best way to get this blood, is by slitting the throat and hanging it. We don't hang it. We don't hang it from the feet in our Sharia. We allow for him to drain properly, to allow the blood to come out from his carcass. So, the question here is that two things. The question, would it be halal or haram from the mentioning the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on it, from one side, and the way it's being slaughtered on the other side? I can tell you safely, most of the kill floors, according to the laws we have in this land, in the United States, that they kill it the acceptable way. The acceptable way by our Sharia, which they do slit his throat, and they would have drained the blood anyway. That is definitely there, inshallah. As far as mentioning the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on it, now we have two sides to it. One side is that if the word of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned on it, that makes it haram, period. There's no way you can touch it. But how about if somebody kills or slaughter an animal without saying anything, and he's a Christian? Does that make it haram or halal? Okay, let me ask the question differently. How about if a Muslim butcher takes a cow, and he's busy, sharpening his knife, he's talking to this guy, and he forgot to say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and he slaughtered the animal. Does that make it haram for us to eat from?
I don't think they will do that. I don't think they do that.
They do what? They don't mention the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I don't think so.
But let's say the niyyah. Most scholars said, and then watch, there's something else. The people who do the slaughtering, sometimes they slaughter up to 1,000 lambs a day. Say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, you just go on at it, and you just kind of skipped one or two. So do we sit on top of him and say, did you say it, you did not say it, you did this, you did? What is the rule here? The rule generally is that would be ما نسينا اللهم اغفر لنا ما نسينا أو أخطأنا. What we've forgotten or we made a mistake on. Our nature is that for us to say Bismillah Allahu Akbar on it anyway. And if I happen to forget or happen to make a mistake and I'm just so busy, I'm trying to control this, whatever it is, animal, I'm doing this, and then I slit it, I say, and after I run the knife, I say Bismillah Allahu Akbar. So I said it after the fact or before the fact, you see. So Allahu A'lam, most scholars said that it is halal. If a Muslim person did the killing and he forgot or he made the mistake, he said it not at the appropriate time. He said that is halal. But let's bring it one step further. How about a Christian man who is slaughtering the Islamic way? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Qur'an, their food is halal for you, and your food is halal for them. So what's the problem? Why are we making the big issue about the food of the Christians and the Jews? See? I'm showing you what is the concepts behind all these different ayat in our deen, and we make a decision. We make a decision, I want to tell you, that if we eat meat, we have to make sure this meat did not come from a dead animal. We have to make sure. And if we know it's not a dead animal, and a Christian man a Christian or a Jewish person who slaughtered that animal, according to almost, I could tell you 80 or 90% of the scholars, they said that is halal because the ayah is clear. It's definitely clear, it is halal. How can we make sure, and this is the question, how can we make sure this did not come from a dead animal? That's the question mark yet to be answered. But for us, I want to tell you something. If we as an ummah, we don't push forward, we don't emphasize, we don't make an effort to make the Zabeeha the halal way, is the way by us asking and inquiring, and we want it to be halal, we wouldn't have had the industry there anyway. And subhanAllah, today you notice, because there's demand, a lot of, you go to a lot of places, they do offer the halal. The halal started to exist more and more, and there's more, certification to be halal. And this is what we're after anyway. So what I'm saying is that we don't only have a religious duty, is that for us to get the halal, but we also have the commercial duty, is that for us to order it and do it and ask for it. Because eventually when there's a lot of demand for that, you're going to find it available, you're going to convert the whole industry to make it halal industry, because everybody would know that this is the right way to slaughter. Wallahu a'lam. So again, going through the different opinions here. Is it halal for us to eat from, say, valves and, bonds and stuff like that? Make a fatwa for yourself. Make a fatwa for yourself, see if this is the right decision for you. I will tell you, we should continuously ask for the meat that is the halal way, because that is the better direction. Let's say that all of us, let's say if there's 10 million or 10, 12, 13 million, let's say, inshallah, there's 13 million Muslims in the United States today. If we all pick up the phones at the same time and we talk to McDonald's, let's say, corporation, and tell them, you know what, we want your hamburgers to be halal meat. To them, it's no big deal. All they have to do is just change the way they slaughter the meat, and we're done. This requirement has worked very well in New Zealand. New Zealand, you'll notice that today in New Zealand, which is the biggest exporter of lamb or sheep in the world, because of demand, because people insisted, and that's what they want, now every single piece of meat gets out of Australia, they write on it halal, or they do it the Zabeeha the halal way. They do it this way. And inshallah, if we push forward, if we push for this, we ask for it, it eventually will be, one of these days, all the Zabeeha all over the world will be the halal way, inshallah. Was that clear, or do you have any questions?
One question, yeah. Like in grocery stores, they use the same saw to cut pork and beef and chicken, what have you.
No.
Is there a...
Well, we know the chicken, you could mention also as well that you could say the dead animal, which is forbidden, as well as the pork, as well as the blood, all that forbidden. For you to mix the good meat with the fat from the pork, or the meat or the byproduct of a dead animal, that is forbidden. We cannot touch it, we cannot eat it. And that's why the best for us is to get to seek meat from a halal place that they don't sell meat that is forbidden to us to eat, like pork or anything else, because you don't want to go through that route. You know, somebody else has said, no. This hadith on, I believe in Sahih Muslim, Allahu A'lam, on Omar ibn Khattab, is that in the days of Rasulullah in the Medina, the Muslims, or generally the people in the Medina, it's not the pots and pans are not readily available, you know, for everybody. When they used to want to cook meat, they used to borrow it from each other. It's kind of like that was a big commodity. It's not like something readily accessible. So they came to Rasulullah and said, Ya Rasulullah, this came from a non-Muslim. They were actually Christians. And they said, we don't know if they cooked pork in it or not. What do we do? Rasulullah said in the hadith, he says, فَانْضَحُوهَا. فَانْضَحُوهَا. What is انضحوها? Put water in it, wash it, and spill it. So basically, if you take a pot that has been used for pork, or it has dead animal in it, or something like that, all what you do is you take it, you wash it, and you could use it. It's not like, khalas, one time that there was a piece of pork was cooked in this pot, it completely became haram forever for us to touch. That's not true. The same thing goes on with the saw, the same thing goes on with the knife, the same thing goes on with the table. If it's clean, it's fine, inshallah, there's no problem. I've seen some of the brothers who order pizza from Costco. And by the way, the cheese is different, that's another subject too as well. The cheese and where the cheese come from, whatever. So some of the brothers who order pizza from Costco, and their knife, if you notice, they cut with it the vegetarian pizza and the meat pizza as well. So he stands by the guy over there. He says, right before he wants to cut his pizza, he says, excuse me, can you clean the knife?
Or use a clean one.
Exactly. He tells him, can you clean it? He's going to say, sure. So he wipes it off. And then he cuts the pizza, and that's halal. You want to make it more complicated on yourself? You can. You can be like the Jews. Look what the Jews did to themselves. They made it more complicated on themselves. They started to ask more and more and more and more and more. And the famous story in Surah Al-Baqarah, and Surah Al-Baqarah was named because of this incident. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Musa alayhi salam, to tell his people, to order his people to slaughter a cow. وإذ قال موسى لقومه إن الله يأمركم أن تذبحوا بقرة, for you to slaughter a cow. If they slaughtered this cow, would have been done. But no, they went back and says, Ya Musa, Is'Allah Rabbaka mahi. Ya Musa, make dua to your Rabb, ask your Rabb. And watch what they said, your Rabb. It's not like their Rabb, your Rabb. Subhanallah. Look at the disrespect. What is it? He says, oh, it's not an old one, it's not a young one, it's not this way, it's not that way. Just find one. They said, tell us. Ask your Rabb, what is the color? They said, this is, yellow, and it's really bright yellow. Came back and said, okay, fine. You know what? There's a lot of different cows out there. Could you just ask him again and kind of explain it to us? He says, it's not the one that is, it's completely subdued, that the one kind of, cuts the ground and plows the ground. It's not the one that, it's kind of like the fighter and the strong one. It's kind of in between. And then they looked and looked and looked. They found this cow and they found one cow that complies with all these different, rules, and happened to be owned by a young person who, what did he want? He says, you know what, I'll let you have it, but you have to give me its weight in gold. And I said, how can we do it? So they bought it from him, and they took the skin, and they sewed it back up, and they filled it up with pieces of gold, and they gave it to him. SubhanAllah. They made it difficult on themselves. You want to make it easy on yourself? You can, inshallah. You want to make it more difficult on yourself? That's your business. You do whatever you want to do. And again, nobody can give you the fatwa this way to tell you, you know what? That is definitely the right thing to do. If you want to be on the safe side, I want to tell you, the safe side is clear. You know what the safe side is? The safest side you can be?
Stay away. Slaughter your own.
Exactly. Slaughter your own. See, I'm not going to trust anybody.
They're not alone.
I'm not going to trust this. Even my closest, my brother Muslim, how about if he forgot? How about if he was not paying attention that day? How about if he killed 2 cows but he's not sure what he did that? You know what? Forget it. I'll slaughter myself. You step aside. I only eat meat from something I've slaughtered myself. A lot of people do that. Or I don't say a lot. Some people do that. That is, نحن بنسميه بالعربي تنطع. We are overdoing it. That is not the way of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, he's our qudwa. He's our, كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة. Look what Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam did. He only eat the meat that he used to slaughter by his own hand? Not true. He used to eat meat from anybody. Anybody who invited him, he comes over to his house and he would eat. Right? And this is a rule. You go into your brother's Muslim's house. You don't ask him, say, Assalamu alaikum. What's the ingredient of what you're give me right now?
Is that halal?
Is this halal beef? Is this halal? Okay, now, halal is beef? Halal. Okay, alhamdulillah. Now, tell me, certify for me that is halal. How did you slaughter it?
What do you show?
Which place did you get this from? Okay, when you went to that place when you bought the meat, was the butcher his name Muhammad or the butcher his name is Jose? You tell me which one. I want to know because that tells me, Now, are you sure they don't sell pork in that place? Because how about if there's a little bit of fat from the pork came in that meat and then that will make it? Yeah, that's not the way. That's not the way. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us not to do this and for us not to exaggerate in doing what we do. And again, I'm not here to give fatwa for anybody. I'm nowhere near the position for me to give opinion and fatwa to anybody. I'm nowhere near the position for me to tell anybody what to do. I have my own problems of telling myself what is right, what is wrong. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I want to tell you, do not over, do not exaggerate in doing your deed. In my opinion, again, I would say, this is called extremism. You know what extremist is? Extremist is that somebody who overdoes things way too much. And somebody does not do it at all. That's an extremist too. An extremist Muslim is somebody who does not make salah at all. That's the other extreme. Right? And somebody on the other side says, no, I would only eat this, and anybody who does not comply with my way, he's kafir, he does not believe, That's an extremist too. Why do we look at it in both directions? Our deen is deenul wasat, the middle. Our deen is easy, This is the way we're supposed to live our lives, the easy way, the good way, the simple way. And as easy as it gets, that is closer to the way of Rasulullah. We have hadith on Rasulullah that everything that he did in his ways, everything that he chose the easier way to get it done. The easier way. And that's what we should be doing. Inshallah.
On talking about the point to make it more difficult, how do you know whether it's, the person slaughtering it is a Christian or is Jewish? You don't know that, right?
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I want to tell you something, and I know this, from inside information during my research these days when I was looking for the Gulf Wars. There is a specific butcher. I'm not going to tell you what area he is. He's a butcher, mashallah, and he's a very strict Muslim, extremely strict. And most of even Jama'at al-Lighiyah, they buy from him, strictly they buy from him because they can trust him. he slaughters about, I'm not going to tell you what state he's in even. So for me not to cause any fitna in the situation. I know as a fact that he rents the kill floor one day a month for him to do the killing, for all the different animals. He gets the orders the whole throughout the month, and he does the killing that day. He does the slaughtering of the Zabeeha that day. And of course, he's doing about like 20 cows and 50 lambs or whatever. He buys them all, he stacks them up that day, and he does the slaughter. And his helpers are all Mexicans. They're the specialized, this is what they do. And I was told by one of them, he was telling me, he says, many times he gets stuck in traffic. He said, go ahead, start without me. Go ahead, start without me. So you tell me, does that make it haram? Trust me, the Mexican person, when he does the slaughtering, he's definitely not going to say by the name of Buddha, or by the name of the sun, or by the name of the rock, or by the name of Lat, by the name of... It doesn't do that. What he does is that, it's just like a mechanic thing. He just sits there and slaughters and walks away, And again, I mentioned this earlier. If the butcher, a Muslim butcher, forgets or makes a mistake by not mentioning the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before he makes the slaughter, does that make this Zabeeha haram? Most of the scholars said no, it does not make it haram, it's just a mistake. That's why you need to be cautious for your deen. What do? Every time you're eating something, what do? Bismillah. You mention the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on it, and that is the way of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. We should follow it all the time, inshallah.
Some places they have, they cut chicken in a line up there, and then they have tape going on there, recorded tape. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Allah Akbar.
No, not Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah.
Bismillah. On the other side.
Bismillah.
How do we... And brothers, let's go back to a different subject. How do we start things in Islam?
Bismillah.
Bismillah. Okay. What do? You open up the door, say Bismillah.
Yeah.
Right? You take you start your food, you say Bismillah. Put your clothes on, you say Bismillah. But when you start Salah, what do you start to do it? Allahu Akbar. When you go to war, you say Bismillah. You go, so Allahu Akbar. Allah is bigger. Allah is greater. You start your war with Allahu Akbar. So these two words that we start things with. Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. Slaughtering starts with both. Bismillah and Allahu Akbar. Both. That's what we do. Some people have said, and this is kind of something where they slaughter some of the meat, and some, I don't know, I don't know any place who specifically would do this, but I heard about this, is that some of the places who do the slaughtering, could be New Zealand or Australia or whatever, they have Surah Yasin playing in the background, and the guys who, I don't know, whatever it is, nationality, religion, language, whatever, they're sitting there slaughtering and Surah Yasin playing, and they're like, this is get done. Is this a concept?
Colorado has one slaughterhouse where it's a big slaughterhouse. Apparently they talked to scholars from all three religions, and they came up with this process where a tape plays, for example, Islamic way of slaughtering, Jewish and Christian. They say it should be acceptable to all three faiths.
Well, if you look at one opinion, the opinion here, anything been slaughtered to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is strictly forbidden. There's no way you can touch
So
it.
if the Christians are doing it in the name
And
of
if a
Jesus,
Christian person,
they'll do it.
or a Jewish person, or what we say an extremist Muslim was non-practicing, I'm sorry, extremist, the other side, I just called him that. A non-practicing Muslim on the other side, that is making the slaughter, If we know as a fact that he's slaughtering not for the sake of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's just sitting there just doing a mechanical operation. What we do is that once we get a hold of this meat, we say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar on it, we say Takbir, and we eat it. This is the other opinion from things, that what we do. Some people said, no, you know what, I want to be more stringent. I want to be more strict about what I think, what I do. I want to make sure that this is a good Muslim that I can trust. He's a butcher, I can trust him, that he is a Muslim person who's going to say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and he's the one who's going to slaughter the right way, the correct way. That is the kind of meat I want to eat. Both ways, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam, which is the right way. And again, I'm not here to give you fatwa which is the right way, which is the wrong way from there.
Yeah, but first of all, we have to have a halal earning in our pocket.
That is true. That's entirely different subject. I agree.
Yeah, but
And like I said
looking for halal meat
earlier,
and then looting here, there.
just like what I said earlier in the beginning of the halaqah, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested Adam alayhi salam with what? With food. That was his test. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, اسكن أنت وزوجك الجنة ولا تقربا هذه الشجرة. Do not come near this tree. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made everything halal for him. And he told him one thing. He said, do not come from it, near it, do not eat from it. That is the one that kicked him out, or he got him out of the Jannah. This is the mistake he did. What was it? It was not money. It was not power and the love of jah and manzila. It was food. It was eating. That's what got him out of the Jannah. Right? That's what got him out of there. Is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him not to eat from the tree, and he ate from the tree. He made the mistake there. And that shows us the importance of the stuff that we eat. The source of it and the nature of it. The source of it.
Can I ask?
Go ahead.
If Christian butchering and on the side, Bismillah Allah Akbar, somebody else is saying, okay?
Even if somebody is not saying Bismillah Allahu Akbar, the ayah is clear. طعام الذين أوتوا الكتاب حل لكم. Their food is halal for you, except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it to be forbidden. The dead, the pork, blood, any kind of blood, anything. No, we don't touch it, we don't come near it. That's forbidden for us, we don't come near it. Strictly, it's clear. So the question is that if a Christian man is slaughtering, and I'm telling you this opinion here, the ayah is clear. When Rasulullah was in Mecca, was forbidden to eat any meat, was mentioned the name of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was strictly forbidden. There is no way from the very first day that Jibreel came to Rasulullah until the day of judgment. That is forbidden 100%. Even the source of it. Even the source of it. Watch. If we are living, let's say, in an Islamic country, or a country that the majority are Muslims, let's say that we live in Syria today, or Pakistan, or Egypt, whatever. And I tell Allah, Brother Tam, and I tell him, you know what, we need meat in Egypt. Where does he buy the meat? If he goes to China, I would tell you automatically that is not a allowable place, because the people over there they're not the people of the book. They're not Christians, they're not Jews. We don't buy meat from them. Period. That is clear. Do we buy it from whom? We buy it, let's say, European country, which is the Christians, and the Jews are there. We could buy it from them. Do we buy it, say, from a region in India where, the people over there, they believe in other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's not allowed. How about a region in, let's say, they worship al-Majus, they worship the sun. Do we buy it from them? We don't buy it from them. That is not the case. Christian and a Jew, you can. And if you buy it from them, the slaughter, the Islamic way or the halal way, it is halal. And this is how Saudi Arabia get most of their meat. The biggest client today for the Australian lamb is the Islamic countries. And that's why they sell it and they write on it, Zabeeha halal. Even the stuff you go down to a lot of places. You go to Costco, you go to any butcher place, you find the meat in its original package, written on it, halal is certified to be halal. And then how do you say that? Why are they doing it this way? Supply and demand. If we ask for it, they will make it. To them, killing is killing, no problem. One way or the other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Omar, you go.
You made a reference earlier to the kill houses, how they collect the blood and it's worth something.
Right.
I wouldn't put too much weight on this because I think they collect the blood because, yes, they want to take advantage of everything that comes out so they don't waste it and sell it.
Mm-hmm.
But the weight of the blood is worth a lot less than the weight of the meat with the blood in it. So in other words, they're not maybe they're not too concerned about draining all the blood, but they're concerned about whatever blood is drained to be collected and sold. Because if the body or the corpse retains some blood, the carcass retains some blood, then it'll be weighing more to be sold as meat. So they'll make more money that way.
MashaAllah. This goes back to, and this is what I mentioned earlier, the meat industry. I mean, this is the standard of meat industry. I don't know if somebody's going to do it differently. The standard of meat industry is controlled and governed by the federal government. And these kill floors, they have a specific procedure of what to do, how to get things done. Right? If somebody makes an exception, that's something else. But the rule is this. Number one is that they take the animal and they slaughter it next to the drain because they want the blood. And then what they do is they tie it from its feet, they hang it up, and they skin it. They never cut the meat the same day. Never do it. Why?
It's too soft and slippery.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
What they do is they take it, they hang it, and if you look at every single kill floor, the crane, it has a track up in the ceiling. It goes from the kill side, it goes into the refrigerator. You walk inside the refrigerator, they hang all these carcasses. It gotta hang for at least 24 hours. And the blood drips from it, goes on the floor.
Yeah, USDA law requires
Exactly.
them to keep it hanging for a number of days.
Exactly.
They cannot cut before.
Number one. Number two is that, for two reasons. Number one, the more important reason is that the butcher cannot cut the meat when it's still fresh. They don't cut it. Mainly they cut it with a saw. And if it's still fresh and still tender, it gets stuck through the teeth. That's why they tell you standard now. If you want to make Zabeeha even at the Eid day, what do they tell you? They say, okay, fine, make the Zabeeha today, come back and pick it up the day after tomorrow if you want to get it processed. You know, they don't give it to you the same day. So what they do is they hang it and they allow everything to drop out of it. And this is what they do in order for you to be able to cut it and process it. The processing is that they sell it to you, the steer, the cow, or the bull, or whatever you want to call it. They sell it to you at its original weight, or they sell it to you by processed weight. They take the fat, they use the blood, and they give you the meat, and they sell it to you per pound. It's very close to what you buy in the market today. It's not a whole lot of difference at that point. So this is standard in the business. If somebody breaks these rules, does it differently, this is something else Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Of course, the cheating is everywhere, you know.
Right.
But Abu Omar is telling us about, you know, the right way. You reminded me of the people who eat medium rare,
Right.
and usually I order well done. But some people eat it with the blood all over it. That's obviously not right.
Watch. Now here's a question. Rasulullah told us in the hadith. He said that we know we cannot eat dead, and we cannot eat dead anything, and we cannot eat what? Blood, except two dead and two blood. What are the two dead? Fish.
And bakri.
Bakri.
What you say bakri? What's the name of
Don't
that? In
say
English.
not shrimp.
You come and eat the crabs. He comes in the
Jarad. Jarad is what we call grasshoppers, or
Crickets.
not the crickets, because makri.
and fish. Two things.
These two, and the jarad, it comes in. The grasshoppers. They come in huge quantities. You see them and they block the sun. I mean, there's so many of them.
Locust, you know?
Locusts.
Yes.
Yes.
So those
The grasshoppers, locusts, mantises of the same family. They used to come to the desert and they come in flocks and they die because they have a specific period. They die. Rasulullah says halal, but I'll never eat it. That's not the food of his tribe. I mean, to me today, even if I find it, it dead, and to me it's an insect. I'm not going to sit there and eat it. But some of the people, subhanAllah, it's halal.
Very halal.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to touch it. It's not something I'm used to eating, right?
It's actually
Two bloods.
Try and bring it here.
I'm sorry?
Two bloods. You were talking about the blood.
The blood.
Yeah, two bloods.
Two bloods. What are the two bloods? Liver. And if you take the liver, there's no way to get rid of the blood. The blood is always in the liver. And the spleen. بنسميه الطحال. الكبد والطحال. These two, the spleen, if you cut it, the blood, wallahu a'lam, and mashallah, my brother scientist is gonna substantiate what I say, is that, the blood or the white blood cells created, or portion of it created in the spleen and in the liver. Portion of it goes, supplies into the, there's no way to get rid of it. Now here's the question. When you take a piece of, let's say, lamb, like leg of lamb, leg of, whatever, and you cut it and there's a little bit of juice comes out from it, is that halal or haram? Haram?
Halal.
Halal? Halal?
Blood, you mean?
If you take a piece of meat
It's still some
and you
lamb.
cut it and there's some juice comes from it, it usually is not very, it's not the color of the blood. It's more like
Light
pinkish, kind of light blood. Is that halal or haram? Halal.
Halal.
Halal. The blood we're ordered not to eat, to drink, not to eat, not to utilize, not to, use, is the one in the arteries and the veins. But if you have a piece of meat and you cut it, inside of it, even though there's juice comes out of it, and this juice is a little bit is blood, but that's halal. The Jews on the other side, they exaggerated. You know what they did? What do? Every single piece of meat, they take something called kosher salt. They have to put the kosher salt on it to absorb all the liquid. It has to be 100% dry. Look, that is tamattu'. This is ghulu. They exaggerated what they've done. They said the blood to them is like even the piece of meat cannot have any even juice in it, any water in it, any moisture in it. So they any piece of meat, they take it, they stick the kosher salt, and that's why they call it kosher salt. What is the kosher salt originally? Where does it come from? It's sea salt. Sea salt. But they call it kosher salt because the kosher slaughterhouses, they order huge quantities of it. Every single piece of meat, they put them in salt. It's got to be sitting in salt for a period of time until absorb all the liquid that comes out of it. So we don't have to do that. Alhamdulillah, our deen is easy. If you take a piece of meat, you just cut it. If there's any juice in it, like the brother was saying, medium rare or medium raw, medium or even raw for that matter. You want to eat it this way, it's halal, inshallah. There's no issues with it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
My question is, it is said in Quran, Yehudo Nasara is not your friend. Don't trust them.
I'm sorry?
Yehudo Nasara are not your friends.
No.
Don't trust them.
No.
How we can say they have slaughtered the animal in the name of God or Yusuf or Aziz?
No.
Because the Jews believe in the Prophet Aziz was a God.
نعم عزير
Christians
ابن الله وقالت اليهود عزير ابن الله وقالت النصارى عيسى ابن المسيح عيسى ابن مريم ابن الله. They said that. How do you trust them? Well, the ayah, we don't have to trust them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, He says, الآن أحل لكم الطيبات وطعام الذين أوتوا الكتاب حل لكم. Their food is halal for you. That's it. We take what the ayah says.
It's not trust, it's just like
It's not about trust. It's not about trust. Watch. Although that we believe that the Jews and the Christians, they practice form of kufr or form of shirk. I agree. And the Qur'an specified that they do. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made an exception from the real kuffar, from the other kuffar. He told us we could do three things actually with them that we don't do with the kafir. What do? We eat their food and they eat our food. The kafir, we can't do that. The kafir is like, we don't touch his food no matter what he does. If there is a Buddhist or a Hindu, somebody, and he slaughters meat, I'll never touch it. That is forbidden. There's no way I could eat it.
It is okay. That is Surah Al-Ma'idah, Ayah 5. About talking you. Surah Al-Ma'idah, Ayah 5. But I say when it is said, they said shirk. They do shirk.
Correct.
Okay. And the slaughter of a mushrik is allowed.
The slaughter of the what?
Mushrik.
Mushrik.
Who make a shirk.
See, this is the slaughter of the mushrik is definitely haram. We don't touch it.
The Quran says they are mushrik. They do shirk.
This is the shubha. This is what the problem is. The problem is that some scholars said if they want to call the kafir and the Jew and the Christian, they call them a mushrik, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said the mushrik. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us they practice in form of shirk. the practicing form of kufr, yes. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with that, He made an exception with them. What did He say? 3 things we got to do with them that we don't do with the kafir. Number 1 is we can eat their food, even though they are mushrik. Number 1. Number 2 is we can marry their women. We cannot do that with the mushrik. Number 3 is وَلَا تُجَادِلُ أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. They are the people of the book. We argue with them with the good way, the sweet way. The kafir, you do whatever you want to do. You go to him, you talk to him, you want to force him. With the Jews and the Christians, you have to be gentle with them, even though. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made exceptions to that. And I'm sorry, I promised the brothers for us to start salah at 8 o'clock, and I apologize for going over again. Please forgive me. But inshallah, we have another day for us to continue, inshallah. Jazakumullah. You want to make a...